Up in the mountains that separate Demacia from the Freljord, there aren't a lot of jobs that pay coin. Some pay in furs, or in loaves of frost-hard bread, but Egil's baby sister was born sickly. The family needed coin to keep her well fed and to buy her medicine. So, Egil's father cut a deal with Egil's uncle Jasper. Egil would become a servant in Jasper's inn at the mountain pass, selling ale to passing traders.
Work hard, all right?
Egil's mother told him.
For your sister.
One night, a season after Egil started working for Jasper, a whole crowd of customers arrived just as the inn was closing. Now, it was strange for travelers to arrive so late after nightfall, especially in the winter. Jasper peered out the window.
I don't know them,
he said, tugging nervously at his wild black beard. The door slammed open, and a crowd of shaggy-haired men thumped inside, shaking the snow from their boots and cloaks. They parted ranks, and an old fellow with a velvet-trimmed cloak approached the bar.
Good evening,
he said with a great city accent.
Our business associate will be arriving in just a few minutes. What's on offer?
Uncle Jasper pointed numbly at the drink list hanging behind the bar. There were 12 brews there, an impressive selection for this part of the Demacian hinterlands. But, one by one, the guards all ordered the absolute cheapest. Forzen's Red. Egil had never tasted any other beer, but even he knew it wasn't good stuff. That's why it was so cheap. Egil hurried into the back room where the kegs were kept in order to pour their ale. As the skunky beverage foamed into the cups, he wondered how much these guests would tip. Would he get one big tip from the leader, or 11 small tips, one from each? His heart raced. Then Egil heard a heavy step on the path outside. The door creaked open, and the next step made the tavern floorboards groan. Egil wheeled the drink cart out into the main room. The newcomer was the absolute biggest man he'd ever seen. His head scraped the ceiling beams. His limbs were pure muscle, as thick as tree trunks, and his face was covered in a bristly red beard. The grisly scars crisscrossing his vast sides looked like he'd really lived through the gruesome battles Jasper's drunken patrons liked to brag about. The velvet-clad man raised his hand toward the stranger.
Gragas, I presume,
he called. Gragas didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the drinks list hanging behind the bar.
You are Gragas, the brewer?
Gragas turned his huge shoulders and gave the little old man a red-faced glare. With a voice so loud it reminded Egil of an old god speaking from below the snowpack, the newcomer growled,
I'm buying a drink.
The air in the room felt like it does when a thunderstorm gathers overhead. Egil began handing out the ales. His hands were shaking.
What's that Karsten flower stuff?
Gragas asked Jasper, pointing at the list.
What flower's that?
That's just the brewer's name,
Jasper said.
It ain't got no flowers in it. Sorry.
Gragas rumbled. Egil handed out the final drink to the old merchant, then stood patiently, waiting for his tip. But the merchant ignored him. His glinting gaze was fixed on the huge newcomer, like a fox's eyes before the pounce.
I'll take the Sun Gold Porter, Gragas announced. That's a precious one, I've heard.
Jasper scurried into the back to pour it, and Gragas thumped over to the table to sit down.
Now, what do you have for me?
He asked. The old merchant started digging around in his huge coat.
I heard you're in the market for Shuriman goods, he said. Floodplain grains, cactus blooms. I'm interested, Gragas said.
The merchant noticed Egil standing there.
"Shoo, boy,"
he said. Egil froze. No tip?
"I said shoot."
The merchant snapped. All the guards laughed. Tears started at the corners of his eyes. Egil hurried into the keg room behind the bar. Jasper was pacing back there, tugging nervously at his beard.
"Damn that man,"
Jasper seethed.
"The Sun Gold Porter. I don't have any."
We ran out?
"We never had it. I can't afford to stock any of those rare ales. They're on offer to impress people. Almost nobody orders them because they're too expensive, and when they do, I just mix some stuff together. Nobody can tell."
To Egil, this seemed like stealing.
"You should tell the big man," he said.
Jasper laughed.
"Why? It doesn't hurt anyone. Listen, I have a business to run, boy. One glass of the porter is a week of earnings here at the inn."
Jasper squared his shoulders.
"Hey, come on. He won't be able to tell."
Jasper snatched a massive stein off of one of the hooks on the wall and started filling it at the Forzen's Red tap, then Eigen Ale, then Karsten Flower. As that murky mixture foamed toward the brim, Egil realized he'd have to deliver Gragas the concocted drink. Cold washed over him like a night wind over the snow. When Jasper thunked the stein into his outstretched hand, he almost fell over.
"Keep a straight face, eh?"
Jasper ordered. Egil thought of his sister. He thought of money clinking in his palm. Then he tottered forward across the empty floor of the inn, struggling to hold the stein aloft. Gragas' booming voice filled the room.
"The recipe I'm working on has a very spicy taste already. I just need something to balance it out."
As Egil approached the table, the merchant leaned forward.
"So, we arrive at the real business." "Aye,"
Gragas grunted.
"The real business."
The merchant reached inside of his coat and drew out a palm-sized lockbox covered in gold and glinting jewels. The shining box was absolutely the most valuable thing Egil had ever seen in his life. It was probably worth 10 lifetimes of Jasper's smelly ale. Standing near it felt like standing beside the sun.
"Azir's tears," the merchant said. "Ancient heirloom spice, ground from the tomb herbs found only in the ruins of the sun disk. The Sun Emperors used to use it to season their mead." "Really?" Gragas said. "When I heard about your quest, the greatest ale ever brewed, well, I immediately sought out the tears. The trades I had to make. The spice is worth a fortune, but I knew you'd be good for it."
Gragas nodded slowly, thinking. Egil suddenly realized that if anyone was going to be able to notice a substitute drink, it would be a master brewer on a quest to make the perfect beer. He reached for the stein, thinking frantically of an excuse, but he was too slow. Gragas noticed Egil and the beer sitting at his elbow.
"Oh, thanks, lad,"
he said, and grabbed the stein himself. He drank deep, and immediately Egil saw his bushy eyebrows furrow. His nostril twitched, his bearded lip curled into a hint of a grimace. His gaze traveled across the room and fixed on Jasper. Egil felt like he was going to melt.
"Oh, he knows we're tricking him,"
thought Egil. But the master brewer did not shout out his displeasure. Instead, Gragas held out his hand for the jeweled box.
"So, let me see here. Show me your perfect spices."
The merchant handed it over. Gragas lifted the lid of the lockbox and sniffed. And again, his nostril twitched. That sensitive sense of smell had found another flavor that troubled it. Egil felt his heart stop.
They're tricking him too! It's a fake!
One forgery was forgivable, but two? Over the same pint? Not as much. Gragas glanced at Egil, just for a moment. It was warning enough. Egil dove away from the table like a snow hare leaping for the safety of the tree line. Then Gragas stood. He flipped the table as he rose, and simultaneously, each one of the guards produced jagged hatchets from beneath their cloaks. Gragas just took out his fists.
Come and get some!
Egil saw only bits of the ensuing fight. He saw the merchant flee toward the bar.
Oh! Crowd in a bucket!
Then Gragas followed with huge strides. There was a sound like an explosion.
Let's get this party started!
Jasper gave a high-pitched scream and skittered straight out the front door. Then the kegs all rolled across the floor toward the guards, a thundering avalanche spraying ale and foam in every direction. It flattened them all but one, who hid behind a table, then popped up, ready to throw his axe. But Gragas grunted. A barrel flew across the room, and the guard simply vanished. Along with him, half of the back wall. Egil heard the guard's tiny scream disappear down the mountainside. Egil crawled out from under the table to see Gragas pouring the gray, dusty contents of the shiny lockbox onto the groaning merchant at his feet.
Mummy dust?
He growled.
Have some respect!
Then he caught sight of Egil. His wild brows narrowed.
Boy!
He called. His booming voice made shards of broken glass tremble on the floor.
Come here!
Cautiously, Egil approached. He thought of his sister. He wondered whether he could run faster than a thrown barrel.
Tell the innkeep to go lighter on fortunes next time, huh?
Gragas said. Then Egil saw the lockbox in the master brewer's outstretched hand. A huge smile parted that bushy red beard.
Your tip.